Hello, welcome to the vlog. Have I moved from filming the TBR? No, because I'm lying to you in it. I've already finished this book. If you haven't watched the TBR, it's linked down below. But let me tell you what I thought about The Only One Left. It's good. It's not the best Riley Sager, but there are some very cool things that it does. The first half definitely concerned me. It's very slow and it does a lot of recapping. Like there'll be a chapter and it'll say something like, and she was holding the knife. And then the next chapter will start and it'll say, she looked down and there was a knife and she remembered how she got it from this, and just like recaps the chapter before. And not like in a subtle way. I just read a John Mars and he does a great job because there's like 20 perspectives in his thing. Every time it starts, he does like a little recap of what happened, but in a very natural way. This is all one perspective, so there's no reason to go that in depth with it, and it felt very clunky. I'm talking negatively about it, but I did really end up liking this book. I like the direction that it took. I really liked the Lizzie Borden character in here. I thought that she was super fun. She can't talk, and so they communicate by tapping. It's 1 tap for no, 2 taps for yes, maybe backwards, but they do that every time. So anytime she answers a question, they say 2 taps. That means yes, and it's like, no, I got it. Like, you don't, I'm in it. You don't have to say it every time. Either say 2 taps or say yes. We don't need both every single time. So my complaints about this are just editing, but the second half is really good. There's a good amount of action and it also maintains a speed. I find sometimes in thrillers there'll be a scene of action and then we'll need to slow down for like 50 pages when it doesn't really make sense, when like the main character's in danger but you just need filler until more plot happens. It also features not quite a book within a book, but a confession within a book, which I think was fun and well spaced out and really effective. Is the main character bland white bread? Yes, of course. It's a Riley Sager book. It features a female main character who is nothing, but it didn't impact my enjoyment of this. It's also got very fun gothic vibes because she has to move into the house, and so there's the housekeeper and the groundskeeper and the cook and the maid and fun stuff that you can do with that. It reminded me a bit like it was trying to go for the vibes of Brain No Work. This book, The Turn of the Key, in the like moving into the new creepy old house, meeting the staff and stuff. This is obviously way better. This is like a perfect thriller, but the effort was there. The only thing is I was not a fan of the 80s setting. It just feels very unnatural to me because they'll be like watching TV and they'll be like, Ronald Reagan's on the TV, and it's like, have you ever read a book where they're like, Biden is on TV? Like, it just doesn't happen. And it feels like a very blatant excuse for none of the characters to have cell phones. That feels like the only reason this is set in the 80s. There wasn't really any fun flavor, or like not just cell phones, but like surveillance equipment. She's hearing weird noises and it would be so easy to just go out and buy a little camera and set it up, but like we can't do that. I understand, I sympathize, but if you're gonna do an 80s setting, make it worth my while. But the twists in this are excellent. There are many twists. They're well paced out. They're not confusing, and they're good at building on each other, but not becoming like a Jenga tower that can crumple at any moment. Like it's a very solid thriller, and I gave it 4 stars. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, you might remember me talking about how I'm determined to become a hat person, and I found one today that I think is gonna work out. Let me just fix it. That looked awful. This looks much better. Like the rest of the world, I am high on Barbie fever. It hasn't come out yet, but I have my tickets pre-booked and I'm so excited. Like I can't fathom it being bad. I know nothing, and yet it is my most anticipated thing of my life. So yeah, that's gonna be really fun. But let's talk about books. I finished The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. And this book is fine. It is something where a lot of the components are there, but it never really came together for me. I think the biggest issue with this is the main character. She is nothing. So the story is this woman is marrying into this very wealthy, prolific family. It feels very Succession coded. There was even this point where someone says, I'm the eldest boy, and obviously it came out before, I'm the eldest boy, but it's all I can think about. If you haven't watched Succession, what are you doing with your life? But anyway, she's marrying into this family, and then some things start to go weird. Her husband hasn't necessarily told her everything that there is to know about this family, and she's uncovering some secrets. So my big issue with this is that the main character is boring and also stupid. At one point she gets this document, let's say, and she won't just sit down and read the whole thing. She reads it in little chunks all at a time, which is for the book's sake only, that they're trying to stretch out this thing and not just reveal the whole thing at once. But no one would do that. And it's not like she doesn't have the opportunity, she just like is prioritizing other things over it, which is super weird. And the other problem is she has no friends. She has like her boss that she talks to, but she has no one else to bounce ideas off of, and you don't get a sense of why she and her husband are together. Like, they have a fine relationship, but once stuff starts going weird, you're like, why are you here? You know? Like, I never felt a strong connection between them that would justify what she's doing. That being said, there are lots of really cool set pieces in here that I think a lot of people will enjoy. They do Krampusnacht, which is like the Krampus night, and that is really fun. And the family is really cool. They're very interesting. The mystery is interesting. I just think not enough of the book is that. There's also a problem because it's a big family and there's a lot of who's married to who and whose kids are whom, and they don't say that ever. Like, they say it once, but there's no family tree. I would get confused about whether Fiona was Stuart or Oliver's wife, and they never helped me out with that other than the opening chapter. Or not opening chapter, but like when they were introduced. The other thing with this book, I'm just gonna say one more bad thing and then we'll start talking positively. The one thing is, don't do this book on audiobook, because the main character is British, so the narrator is British, but everyone else in the story is American. So it's just this poor narrator trying to switch between her voice and everyone else's voices, and it just feels very unnatural every time. They did a fine job with it. Like, this narrator is good. It just wasn't a good idea to do it like this. But I think this book will really appeal to a lot of people. I think that it is a very solid thriller, if not a very solid mystery. There's lots of very gruesome stuff that happens, surprisingly, in a very fun way. And they have this big family estate that they go to at the end of the book that's pictured on the cover, and there's a maze in it, and it's one of those, like, half of it is an old crumbling house, half of it is a new house. I love that. Also very turn of the key, which we referenced for the last one. I just want a new turn of the key. Just let me know what that is. So it's definitely a book that I would recommend if you're looking for a solid thriller that is domestic but not husband-wife domestic, I think. And it's very slow moving plot. It takes a little bit of time to get everywhere, but once we get there, it is really good. I'm gonna give it 3 stars, and we can move on to the next thing. This might be nothing. Welcome to my bathroom. It is quite echoey in here, huh? You don't really think about acoustics until you're doing something like this. Anyway, this is my reading in the dark portion of the video, so I'm gonna sit in here and read Finna. It's only about 90 pages, so I don't know if I'll do that all in one run in here, but I want to at least get to some spooks. I think I'll just be sitting on the floor. Maybe I'll sit on the toilet. Who knows? Maybe I'll mix it up. Actually, this would be smart. You can see that. Ooh, there I am. Yes. All right, let's do some reading.
Something spooky out to phone. I'm just
Unfortunately, reading in the dark wasn't super successful. It definitely hurt my back. I didn't do a lot of the story in there, and it didn't really provide a spook because I was doing it in the middle of the day, so noted for my next book. Unfortunately, the book wasn't a big hit either. I think I'm probably gonna give it 3 stars. It was definitely not horror. Some spooky things happened, but I think it being 90 pages sort of hindered it, that moment didn't really land. And also this book really focuses a lot on the relationship between the main character Ava and her partner or ex-partner Jules. Jules is non-binary, so there was some good and interesting rep in there. It sounds like the author is also non-binary, so that was cool to see. But the problem is that the book starts when they've already broken up, and it's sort of trying to get them back together, but you don't know what the relationship was like when it was good, what it was like when it was bad, what it's like now, and so you just like can't get on board, or I couldn't get on board with wanting these characters to be together when they're still so obviously hurt and resenting each other and sort of being forced into this situation together. Did I ever talk about what Finn is actually about? It's this IKEA-like store where a portal opens up one day and a customer is lost through it. So Ava and Jules are tasked with going to find this missing woman. Good in concept, but I think didn't focus on what I wanted it to focus on. It was a lot of the relationship which I didn't care about, and not enough spooks. It also weirdly bore a resemblance to The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, which I'm also reading right now, and is an infinitely better book than this one, so that also sort of took me out. But yeah, it was just sort of fine. I hold no animosity toward it. I'm gonna give it a 3. Hello, I'm here for a chaotic update. I decided not to read And My Dreams Are Hold a Knife. I really want to read it, but it just kind of seemed very samey, and I feel like I've read a lot of things similar and nothing really that I've loved, and so I wanted to go with a different tone, and so I'm reading my best friend's Exorcism right now. I'm on page 50, and I needed to give you an update because I already have so many thoughts. The first thing, my post-it, is the line on page 12, she and Gretchen were best friends and then came that fall and they fell. So confirmed, it does take place in fall. Also the line on the back, or the blurb, says this book packs all the magic of a summer horror flick, which is like what Summerween is all about. And the other thing I want to talk about is this is set in the 80s, just like the last one left was, but this one makes sense and I need to talk about it in order to justify my feelings. So this one is also doing a lot of media references, which I didn't hate, and I was like, why is that happening? It's because they're teenagers, and so much of teenage life does revolve around the media that you're doing, what songs you're listening to. The whole opening was about how she went to see E.T. and how E.T. changed her life. I was also obsessed with E.T. as a child. I made a paper doll of him. It was weird, but like, that's an incredible movie. And I know my mom talked about going to see it when she was a kid, so that was very fun. Anyway, what was I saying? Media. So this also like immediately mentions Ronald Reagan, but it's relevant because one of the girl's parents are like hardcore Republicans, and it shapes how they behave, which shapes how she's raised. And like all of the media references in here means something, and I'm finding that really valuable. Are there too many? Sure. There's so many that like every chapter title is the name of an 80s song, but like that's just fun. You can tell the book is going to lean extremely 80s, and I love that. I'm kind of obsessed with it. I think that this is a really incredible book, and the tone of it is perfect, and I love where it's going. It also just feels like it's written in the 80s. It starts with a flash forward of 20 years. The main character Abby is all grown up, and she's like, what happened 20 years ago? I'll never forget. You know, that classic thing. But it's about her friendship with this girl Gretchen. It starts off them meeting and going to her birthday party, and then them growing up and sleepovers at each other's houses, and now they're in high school and they have a couple other people in the friend group. And I think that the way it's written is just so true to how these characters would talk and think, and in some ways offensive, like definitely some outdated language, but in a way that you know that the book is going for it. There's also a bit about Kitty. No, let's not scratch that. I just think that the voice of it is incredible, and I think that this was a really good decision for me to pick up because it's so interesting. It's so not cookie cutter. I can't anticipate what it's going to do, and I think it's going to be really fun. And I know we've talked about the cover, but look at the cover. Just it's perfection. I'm so glad that I have a copy of this. I am almost exactly halfway through my best friend's Exorcism, and I'm sorry to say that I'm kind of bored. Basically, immediately after my last check-in, we had an incident. Gretchen, the best friend, goes into the woods and gets lost and comes back, and now she's acting kind of weird. And it's been like 100 pages of her just kind of acting weird, and like no one really knows what's going on with her. Some people think she's on drugs, some people think she like has PTSD. Exorcism. She's gonna need an exorcism, and it's just so frustrating to know that as the reader and have none of the characters realize it. So I'm just kind of like waiting, and there are like a couple of interesting things that are happening, but there's been like one or two spooky things, you know? Like I think there's a way to do that and have it be actually scary. I don't know, this is just like my least favorite reading experience where you're just like waiting for something to happen, because stuff is happening, but you know that she needs to be exorcised, unless like this is all a metaphor and she actually just does have some sort of mental illness or something, but I hope that's not what it is. So yeah, a lot of the fun has been taken out because like her parents don't believe her and the school doesn't believe her, and she's never considered exorcism at this point. Like the main character Abby hasn't considered it, so it's just frustrating and so annoying because like before the incident in the woods happened, I was like getting super strong 5-star feelings from this, just loving it. Like I think you could see how excited I was, and now I'm just kind of waiting. But it is now October, so it counts for the prompt. Yeah, I'll finish it up and hope that something changes. Like there are hints there. It's also just so funny because the last Grady Hendricks that I read was Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I'm pretty sure that's him, and felt very similarly, where like there's lots of really cool things but so much of it is just waiting. And that one, you meet a person and they're like, there's something weird about him, and it's like, it's called To Slaying Vampires. I think I might know what's going on with this gentleman. And yeah, just very similar feelings here, which is so disappointing because like it's good, the writing is good, the plots that we're in are good, we just need to get somewhere. So my best friend's Exorcism, I didn't like it. I'm so shocked and so disappointed, and I definitely can see why other people like this. I definitely get the Grady Hendricks thing, but wow, was this dull. Don't get me wrong, there was some great body horror that happened. There were a couple of scenes that were very squeamish, and I really liked those, but the plot of this is just nothing. Even by the time we get to the exorcism, it's boring and it's so weird, and it's supposed to be this story about their friendship and how much they love each other, but like you don't get that. They only spend like a couple scenes together, and there's no emotion behind this, and most of it is just like Abby being sad. We're just following this sad girl as she's sad and all of her friends don't like her, and it's very sad, but like nothing changes. Like if the character can't do anything, then you can't follow her doing anything, and if she doesn't have friends, she doesn't have anyone to talk to. And even like as very clear evidences of demonic possession are occurring, she's still like, this is super weird. It's a real thinker. Like, it's so frustrating. I feel like I have very similar feelings to this as I do Finna, but I had lower expectations of Finna, and also it was 90 pages. If this was 90 pages, it probably could have been really good. It's just long stretches of being like, I'm scared, I'm sad. And there are other characters in this that have things happening to them that it would be really interesting to follow, and we just never do that. And it's not fun. Like, the elements of this should be so fun, but they're not. They're really sad and boring. Other than those few scenes where spooky stuff happens, I did really enjoy those, but like, I was already kind of checked out by the time that they happened, so they couldn't have their full impact. And oh boy, I've never been this mad at a 3, which I think means it's a 2, and that's so sad. And when people are like, Gretchen's not acting like herself, we don't know Gretchen. We haven't spent any time with Gretchen. They don't even have anything to reflect back on. The only thing that they do at the end is talk about the very beginning of the book, but like, that's nothing. The ending was nice. I liked that. And I really liked the beginning. I loved the beginning, and I can't believe it went so south. There was even like this thing where we're leading up to Halloween, the Halloween weekend, and then we just sort of jump past it and do like a quick line to reflect on it later, when like that should have been the prom, like the big lead up that the whole book is going toward, and it was nothing. It really just fizzled out, and I don't know what to tell you. I'm very interested to read reviews of this now. I understand still loving the things that it does, but are other people like the characters, such character development? Like, no, we spent too much time on the boring stuff and not enough time on the super good stuff. And yeah, 2 stars. I thought that I had filmed an outro, but apparently I didn't do that, so we're gonna do that now. It is the end of Summerween. It's been over for a while, but you know I'm a slow reader. And we hit all of the prompts, the 4 books, and the reading in the dark, which is very fun. Not super successful. Nothing that I'm obsessed with. A lot of things that I was mostly just disappointed in. I think for the family game Finna, side note, I don't know how to say Finna. They write it in the book like it's an acronym, like it's in all caps, but they never say what it stands for. So I don't know, Finna, don't know. So that and my best friend's Exorcism, I felt like I had really high hopes for, and they let me down. And I think part of the reason that the only one left is the winner out of this video is because I had very low expectations for it. Like, I know that I love Riley Sager, I know that I love this cover, but I also know that he's capable of writing some real stinkers. When this book took a turn for the better, I was all the more excited. Whereas this book started out super strong and fizzled out. This one did the opposite. And you always want to end strong if you're not gonna start. The whole thing should be strong. What am I talking about? Anyway, I've had a super fun Summerween. I've really enjoyed watching everybody's vlogs from it, getting lots of recommendations. I'll definitely get around to reading In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. That's gotta be my #1 priority at this point. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you had a spooky Summerween, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.